Hello, it's Alysa. Hello, 大家好，我是其诗闻. And today we're talking about some of the things that I regret or didn't like so much about growing up in China. A lot of you were interested in my last video about the things that I loved about growing up in China. And so to be fair, of course we have to do one on the things that I didn't like so much. No country is perfect, and everywhere has their pros and cons. So we're going to dive into that today. Let's start off with some of the things that I regret. Firstly, I really regret not going to a local school when I was a kid. Even though I was very young when we first came to China, I had already been in kindergarten for a few years, as well as my siblings. And our parents were concerned if they stuck us into a Chinese school where we couldn't understand anything, that it would be really hard for us to maintain the level that we had and to settle in. So most of my education as a kid was English with Mandarin on the side. I really regret that because not going to local school means that I missed out on the most dense, best place to learn Cantonese, which would be in the classroom. Back then, Cantonese was spoken in the classrooms, and my classmates would probably be speaking Cantonese as well as Mandarin, and it would have been such a perfect environment to learn Cantonese easily. I do speak English and Mandarin, but it's so hard for me to learn Cantonese now. Once my Mandarin was already pretty good, Cantonese just felt like a completely different language, and it was so hard for me to pick it up. I am not gifted in languages by any means. My English is getting worse and worse. I'm glad that I can even manage to speak English and Mandarin at the same time. And I don't know if I'm going to ever get better than the basics that I speak now. Cantonese is such a special language, but it's a dying language. So if your family has Cantonese background, or if you are living somewhere where they speak Cantonese, please do let your kids learn Cantonese early on, because it's much harder in the future. Next would be not investing or getting property. Back then, we had no idea how long we were going to be able to stay in China. The visa policies were always changing, and we didn't really know what might happen next. It was quite an adventure. We didn't buy any property. Our parents wouldn't even let us own a dog because if we left China, it would be pretty sad to leave the dog behind. Yeah, back then we didn't even think about the possibility of shipping the dog to wherever we moved to. But now, as far as I know, foreigners cannot even buy a house or a car on a mortgage. They have to pay the full price, which is a really big chunk of money. This is another one of the things that just makes it so hard for foreigners to truly settle down in China and call it their home. Next, I do regret not exploring China or Asia enough. Growing up, we were a family of 6, so it was a big group of people for traveling, and it would be quite pricey. We didn't travel that much, but I did go to all of the nearby cities. I had basically been to all of Guangdong. But then after I went to university, I was very busy with my studies and part-time job, and then eventually got busy with my full-time job, and I found that I never really took the time to properly travel and explore. Then again, every time there's a holiday, it just felt so overwhelming to face all the crowds and the traffic and go and 抢票 and try to get tickets for wherever you're going. It was just too much, too many people, and then a lot of the times you end up just giving up and not going anywhere. Now that I'm not working a corporate job and my work is a bit more flexible, I do plan to be traveling much more in China and seeing all those other places on my bucket list that I still haven't been to yet. Let's go on to some of the things that I didn't like. Connected to that one is definitely the crowds. It is so crowded everywhere, especially if you live in any of the first tier cities. It is just very crowded, lots of traffic. Sometimes you just kind of want to vibe out and maybe you're having a day or having a moment and you want to find a body of water and just sit there by yourself and like think about your life and listen to a sad song. And then suddenly you find yourself surrounded by a bunch of other people. I know a lot of people, Chinese people, who don't even want to leave their house on the weekends because it's too crowded. Or a lot of the time when you go traveling, you say that you're going to see the 风景, but you end up seeing 人山人海, which means people mountain, people sea, just everywhere, people. But then again, it's because of this huge population that enables you to live a very convenient, fast-paced life, to get everything that you order within 30 minutes, to have someone on the phone when you call the customer service. It wouldn't be possible without the huge population that there is. Connected to that one is that it's a very competitive environment. You have to kind of fight for everything. As soon as your kid is born, you want to make sure your kid gets into a good school. Then your kid has to study for the Gaokao and has to pass the Gaokao and get really high scores so that they can get into a really good university. Then once they get into university, they need to get the best grades so that they can have the best future for themselves. Then you compete to find a partner, find someone who is talented, educated, capable of making money, responsible. It's a competition there too. And then you go to find a job, and it's just so tough for Chinese people to survive in this very fast-paced economy and very competitive environment. People are working in some very intense environments from 9 to 9, 6 days a week, 11 to 11, 6 days a week. There's many terms in Chinese to describe the kind of working environments and how people can be very 内卷. And yes, the efforts and the things that they are doing are benefiting the economy and the society, but it comes at a cost to people's mental and physical health. Like if you see the Meituan drivers, yes, they are going to get you the food super fast, but if you see some of the dangerous ways that they drive and some of the accidents that can happen, it's really not worth it. Like, but they're doing it just so that they can get those marks and make that money and and get you your food as soon as possible. However, now people are getting a lot more curious about mental health and about setting boundaries for themselves when it comes to working environments and doing their best to balance their work, play, and doing their best to find a healthy work-life balance. Some people are even changing it up a bit and deciding, hey, I don't want to compete with this anymore. I'm going to go to Dali and buy a big house and raise a farm and build a retirement home with my friends. There are all these kinds of articles in the news, and people start to see that there are many different kinds of life. Find that there are some other options out there. Because I have worked with Chinese people, I have definitely felt that kind of Chinese working environment and staying late and having very stressful deadlines and being expected to devote your body and soul to the company. I've seen people working in the CBD of Guangzhou, which is like the best area of Guangzhou, and they don't even see the sunlight. For their lunch break, they're going from the skyscraper office buildings down to the underground and having something for lunch. They are ordering Waimai every day and then going back up. And then by the time they go home, it's already dark. So that means that they don't even get any sunlight or vitamin D throughout the day. I think that during COVID, a lot of people really changed their minds about what's important and realized that yes, health is the most important thing. And since then, the parks have always been full of people with dogs, with frisbees, with tents, with their kids, like actually enjoying themselves and relaxing on the weekends. And this is a trend that's really come up in recent years, and I'm sure that it's for the betterment of everyone's mental health. Finally, China is not an immigrant country, and you don't see a lot of diversity here. Yes, there are a lot of people who come in for tourism, for business, but for people to truly settle down, it's so difficult. We have been here since 1999, and because I'm just a regular citizen, I'm not an NBA player, I'm not a Nobel Prize winner, I have not invested millions of dollars at once into China's economy. So that means that I'm not eligible for the green card. There was a new policy that came out recently in which you can get a green card through your work, but you have to be making about 60,000 to 70,000 renminbi per month for 4 years. Like, there's no way that I'm going to make that much. It's an extremely high number. Because you don't have a green card, and because this country is not designed for people who really stick around for the long term like me, there are a lot of things that you lose access to. There are certain platforms that Chinese people can use that I cannot use. For example, couldn't rent the electric mopeds that are around my area because I don't have a 身份证. I couldn't get my Apple Watch with the GPS because it needs a virtual phone card, and I need a 身份证 for that. I couldn't buy the data package when I was going to go to Hong Kong for a few days over the weekend because I need a 身份证 to buy it. I can't buy some products from 国际天猫 or 国际京东, the international shopping platforms, because for them to go in through customs, you need a 身份证 for that. So there are a lot of things that I don't have access to, even after being here for all these years. In the big cities in China, you can see a mix of people from all over the country, all coming to Guangzhou and making it their home. But sadly, the same cannot be said for foreigners. So although Guangzhou is a place where you'll find a lot of people coming and going for tourism or business, there aren't going to be a lot of people sticking around for the long term like my family has. However, one of the most common ways to get a green card that you see for foreigners is through marriage. So there can be a foreigner who has been in China for 5 years, married to a Chinese woman, and he can get a green card. Which is kind of sad because I have been here for like 24 years and I'm still not worthy of a green card. But I think that a lot of the positive things in China and also the negative things, they all relate back to the population. Because China has such a high population, it means that it's very convenient, it's very fast, construction is completed quickly, everyone is efficient. But it's also because of the huge population that means that people go through their day-to-day lives with quite a bit of stress and having to deal with huge crowds when they go out and struggling to buy the Gaotie tickets to go back home for Chinese New Year's. I am so grateful to everything that this country has given me, and I appreciate it for allowing me to stay here as long as I have. Yes, it's not perfect, but no country is perfect, and where you go is your choice. So these are some of the things that I regret or that I didn't like about growing up in China. If you haven't seen my video about the things that I loved about growing up in China, do remember to check out that one. And let me know what you think about this video. What are some of the things that you didn't like about living in China, or what are some things that you loved about it, or what are some things you'd like to hear more about? Feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!